evening. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Ishan Russell, and on Big Picture today we're focusing on the elections in Delhi. The unique thing perhaps is happening in election history for one of the first few times that caste seems to have become a sort of a issue that has been relegated to the back burner, and class divide, the class divide that is quite evident in the wealth in Delhi, in the disproportionate wealth in Delhi, is that coming out in these elections? We'll be talking about that to Vinod Kumar Sharma, political editor at the Hindustan Times, and also C.L. Manoj, a citizen political editor at the Economic Times. Vinod, a simple question, is this an election that is a watershed election in that sense that we've moved beyond caste?
I wouldn't call it watershed because, there have been symptoms to this effect. If you are talking about aspirational India, which the BJP incessantly talked in the run-up to the 2014 elections, and they made development their plank, though there was some smattering of caste, inducement here and there, caste allurement rather. In an aspirational India, when people come from small towns to big cities, to the city of promise, which is Delhi, you see the promise overwhelms the identity, the caste identity, the birth identity. And that is what it is. That there is so much of peer pressure, there is so much of peer competition, and there is so much of peer emulation that young people especially, their aspirations drive them towards what they do. And that is where, and when there is aspiration, there has to be a class distinction. Because, aspiration is basically to possess. And once you possess, you join a class or qualify for a class. This is a Marxist theory which I am broadly sort of paraphrasing. So this is what is happening in Delhi. Not that the people of Delhi, adhere to Marxist ideology. There is consumerism, there is so much of popular, information explosion. And people are exposed to all kinds of quality lives, which they perceive as quality lives. And, there is this talk of, disposable income, or, conspicuous consumption. So all this combines to fuel aspiration, rightly or wrongly. And aspiration is something which kills, birth identity and makes people move in a direction that is devoid of that identity. It is in fact a quest for a new identity, which is based on quality of life.
All right, so moving ahead in life is perhaps what dominates the most for an ordinary Delhiite. But Manoj, if we talk about the Aam Aadmi Party now, as far as their politics is concerned, I mean, it is also a lot about class, addressing the fact that the rich have it all and the poor don't, and we'll set that balance right. But they've resorted to caste also to a certain extent. I mean, the symbolism has not been devoid from the Aam Aadmi Party as well, particularly in Delhi.
Well, in Indian context, the Aam Aadmi, the common man, it also kind of, travels from caste and class barriers. After all, when you are talking that, whether Delhi, the population has risen above the class or caste barriers. But then it's interesting because you reminded me, because this is the country where the Marxian traditional classical class approach was confronted by the casteist class approach of Lohiites. And let's not also forget that a majority of population in Delhi are the people who come from other states. Like, there is a very major poor, underprivileged people who come to Delhi before aspiring to be in a new class. First they try to find a job for themselves. So that's why you have the rickshaw pullas, you have many people coming from UP, Bihar, down south and other places. So they bring a class and there is a caste. So I think that rightly you said that in the Aam Aadmi Party, while the very coinage of Aam Aadmi, it ensures that you try to include both the caste and class and focus the underprivileged. So I think there is no election will happen in anywhere in this country without a very solid caste calculations.
Okay. And that, Vinod sir, would you agree that in Delhi also, it is caste also, I mean, which is a bigger factor at the end of the day? I mean, between Kiran Bedi and Kejriwal, I mean, caste and those allegiances are not that big a factor versus...
May I say one thing, that certain questions that have arisen in the course of the campaign and certain developments that preceded the Delhi elections have perhaps brought in the caste factor. And that caste factor is applicable to the Jats in Delhi, the outer Delhi, because the BJP gave a non-Jat as a chief minister in the adjacent Haryana. Similarly, when there was this mention of northeastern people as immigrants, that is, actually they should have been called a linguistic minority,
right,
which I am in Delhi, and so is CL Manoj, because we don't belong originally to Delhi, but we are in Delhi and we speak a different language.
Right.
Our mother tongues are different. So we are a linguistic minority, but they were called immigrants, which means, in other words, foreigners. And they coming from a state where this foreigner question has been predominant. So that identity will come into play. It's believed that some sections may be guided by that identity. So I personally feel that, and even the Vaisya Samaj, where the BJP committed that bloomer of attributing Gotra to the tactics of Mr. I won't want to repeat that because I'll hurt the sentiments of Mr. Kejriwal. So even there the identity comes into play, and there has been an effort by Kejriwal to bring that identity into play. But my theory, which can be questioned or challenged, is that in big cities, and especially in a city like Delhi, aspiration guides a lot. I mean, I have come from a small city to Delhi. I came long years back. And when I apply that to myself, I can relate to what these people are aspiring to be.
Right.
Like when I came from a small city to Delhi, I wanted to speak, English as fluently, and I was okay, but I wasn't all that good. Then most of the people I would interact, of my age, in the university and colleges in Delhi, and where I was studying. So I think that aspiration is a guiding force for the youth. But identity may sustain, may survive with people who are elder, who are in a different age bracket. Basically, aspiration is guiding the younger people, and younger people are driving this election.
Right.
And they influence their parents.
Yes, absolutely.
Largely.
And on the question of that younger people, because, you mentioned Marx a little earlier in your answer, Manoj, and the fact is that the position that was traditionally occupied by the left in sort of the JNUs in Delhi, that somehow, you see a movement towards the Aam Aadmi Party. You have a lot of members of the Aam Aadmi Party who were part of that Anna agitation, who came from JNU, which was traditionally a very sort of left political stronghold. So in that sense, do you see the angst or the anger from the young generation that the left was very able to use very well is now perhaps shifting to the Aam Aadmi Party, and that is evident in the class distinction that the Aam Aadmi Party is trying to capitalize on?
Well, I think the Aam Aadmi Party is trying to aspire for the space of the left in Delhi. I don't think they would have come out of the gate of JNU. I mean, that's what the left is stuck to in Delhi. That's a different topic at all. But I think, yes, last election in 2013 election, the major forces that propelled the Aam Aadmi Party of Kejriwal, of course, youth played a very important role. They were angry with the establishment, which represented then by the UPA, which almost had 8 or 9 years anti-incumbency that time. There was allegations of corruption. And there was the middle class, which was, for reasons, they thought that the UPA government is not, catering to the aspirational classes. And they were fed up with them. And most importantly, Arvind Kejriwal's party took away the Congress' most traditionally strong base. That is the slum dwellers, that is the lower middle class. So there was an all-out anger against the Congress party that time, for reasons different. But today's election, there is a 9-month-old NDA government. So if all the projections shows, I don't know how far these opinion polls are accurate, but it clearly, shows a trend that the elections have become extremely close. So if in Delhi, where the BJP swept all the 7 Lok Sabha elections only in last May, and in another 8 months' time, 9 months' time, and that too after BJP, conquered new areas like Haryana to Maharashtra to Jharkhand, and even a big victory in Jammu and Kashmir. And if the general opinion is that it's become very close, So obviously the honeymoon in Delhi has been very short for the BJP.
Right.
So maybe the same factors which propelled the Aam Aadmi Party has become, suddenly dissolution, at least in Delhi with the BJP, which got dissolution with the UPA after 8 years rule.
Right, absolutely. We also joined by Nilab Mishra. He is the editor of Outlook Hindi. Thank you very much for coming in, Nilab. We've been talking about caste versus class in Delhi, and we've been talking about the tactics that the political parties have used in campaigning. Campaigning is drawn to a close, but the shrillness of the campaign still lingers on. So, in terms of caste versus class, which one do you think was perhaps the bigger challenge or the bigger sort of talking point for the political parties?
Well, caste wasn't a point so much in Delhi, and that is because of the urban and cosmopolitan nature of Delhi. It's a kind of melting pot. And you have people from different regions, different caste groups who come to Delhi, and the caste identities are not so pronounced. There are common neighborhoods, especially among the poorer people. For instance, you take any slum, and there you would have a mixed population of Valmikis from maybe Haryana and Mallas from Bundelkhand and Yadavs from Purvanchal.
Right.
So it would be a mixed composition, and they share a common neighborhood, they share common problems. So class is more prominent an identity in Delhi, a marker in Delhi, than caste. Of course, this is not to say that there are pockets in Delhi where caste is important. For instance, in outer Delhi, or in the urban villages in South Delhi as well. But then, there are some places where the regional marker is quite strong, for instance, Chitranjan Park maybe, or various areas of Mukherjee Nagar, or maybe Maharani Bagh, there are also slums which called JJ colonies in Delhi, where you have a predominantly Tamil population or an Oriya population.
Right.
But then, because of the nature of the constituencies, they share common problems. For instance, gated communities would share common perceptions and common ideological, they would have common ideological impulses, and that would be different from, say, people in rural Delhi, or in urban villages which are half urban, half rural, or say in JJ colonies, so you have. And that is why the campaign did not focus so much on caste. Communalism at times can be an issue.
Right.
Religious communities, sectarianism, that is an issue in areas, as it was in Trilokpuri for a while, and in certain other areas it might be an issue, but then it's the basic urban nature of problems which are faced differently by different classes of people.
All right.
So naturally, then the class would be a stronger point of mobilization than caste.
All right, Vinod sir, but does this carry forward from you, or is this limited to only Delhi, or perhaps even Mumbai to a certain extent, where, the composition is not that homogeneous?
No, you must understand one thing, that, the class consciousness is also fueled by certain things which are happening. And the decisions for which are being taken in Delhi, because it happens to be the national capital. You see, willy-nilly, rightly or wrongly, the government of the day, the center, has come to be perceived as a government of the rich, for the rich.
Right.
And unfortunately, because of the personality transformation of certain prominent faces by the rich. Now, this may be a very wrong perception, a very hasty perception. But as we all know, politics is about perceptions.
Right.
Which may not last, but they do a lot of damage, or they bring a lot of benefit. Delhi was the city that was the seat of the Anna Hazare movement.
Right.
And Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, who was a product of that movement, could not fully encash the political benefits of that movement. He got a government, but that was expended for whatever reasons. One person who exploited the Anna Hazare movement against the then UPA to the hilt was Mr. Narendra Modi.
Absolutely.
And he could do it at the pan-Indian level. It wasn't in any minor way that did that sentiment contribute in favor of the BJP-led NDA and against the Congress-led UPA.
Right.
Now the wheel has come a full circle. And the same sentiment is getting revived. If the sounds that we hear on the ground are true, and one can be wrong, so I'd like to be pardoned if I am wrong, but if sounds that we are hearing on the ground are true, then I think the boot is now on the other foot.
Absolutely, because
And that is where what you are witnessing, and what was it? It was an anti-graft movement. But graft was associated more intrinsically with the haves. It was associated more intrinsically with the powerful. And it was associated more intrinsically with certain policies.
Right.
Now there was a policy paralysis in the UPA, but the policy is continuing in the NDA with the exception of certain allocations in the social sector.
all right.
Now that is where the whole question is arising of the same movement, the same sentiment hitting the BJP now in Delhi,
Okay.
which benefited the BJP in the Lok Sabha elections, and not pan-Indian, not just in Delhi but across India.
All right, and that anti-graft movement, Nilab, that is a crucial factor over here, because I was reading somewhere that even traders in Delhi who were traditionally supporters of the BJP, thanks to the anti-graft movement, thanks to what Kejriwal had told them that go record anybody who asks you for a bribe, are now quite happy voting for the Aam Aadmi Party instead of the BJP who they voted for in the past 3-4 assembly elections.
Yes, and there also in graft the class element is strong, as Vinod said just now. And because the have-nots are at the receiving end of grafts, you know, for instance, the police, I mean the extortion by police, who is at the receiving end? It's
Right.
the poor people. Or traders, you know, traders, not the big traders, they don't mind a bit of parting with a few crores of rupees to the income tax authorities or some enforcement agency, but it's the poor really, or the lower middle class, you know, the lower middle traders, you know, the retail traders, small retail traders who are at the receiving end of graft. So graft too is a sharply dividing line among classes. You know, it's the difference between the victimized and the perpetrator, you know, that's important, and that's a very basic class divide in urban Delhi.
All right, my final question, gentlemen, is a little bit different. Moving on from here, because we've seen a very shrill campaign, but for Delhi, for me, living in Delhi for quite some time, it was rather unique. And Vinod sir, I'll start with you, because this time around in Delhi, everybody's wearing their political allegiances on their sleeves. Everybody was too busy to vote in Delhi at one point in time, or too busy with their lives, but now that certainly has changed. The political awareness in Delhi, and the fact that the Delhiites think they're going to be voting almost watershed election, is something that was missing in perhaps early elections.
Well, if it is all about class, then I attribute it directly to the class consciousness, which is a good thing to happen to any society, that we should not take things lying down beyond a point. We should allow our voices to be heard, and we should intervene as people who are residents of the capital city of Delhi. But one thing you must understand, that the voting percentage this time is going to be very high on the lower end of the pyramid.
Right.
You know, the pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid is going to flow like mad. I mean, this is my assessment, because they're waiting to strike. The top end of the pyramid, I do not know how it behaves,
Right.
whether it sits before television cameras and praises the government's policies. But I think that if this election, if there's a big if, springs surprises for the ruling party at the center, I perceive a major course correction in the policy formulations in the days to come.
Yes,
it
right.
will have a major bearing on national policy making in this country.
Very interesting point. Manoj, final comments to you on that one only, what Vinod sir said, that the wider ramification of this class struggle, would the BJP right now be able to, if tomorrow things don't go according to plan, then would it require relook as far as the entire outlook on this class struggle that is perhaps being witnessed more so in Delhi than in any other state right now?
See, Delhi is maybe a very small state, but being the national capital, like Mr. Modi himself said that the whole world is looking at this Delhi election. So it's a very prestigious election for BJP. And the fact that BJP has been winning many states after the Lok Sabha election, so those who are opposed to BJP, they are also think that this is the place where everybody should pool their resources to try and stop it.
Yeah, Mamata Banerjee came out and
So Mamata Banerjee is coming. And also you see all those projections show that the Congress is increasingly getting edged out of the frame.
Right.
Also shows that some of the traditional community which backed Congress is this time firmly positioning behind Aam Aadmi Party. And I think for the last couple of years there has been an increasing trend of very high turnouts in election. Election Commission also did a lot of things, and also we have frequent elections, so it's becoming, and also because of television, more people are getting involved. It's becoming very keenly contested elections, and more importantly, already people say that this outcome will impact the coming elections in Bihar or maybe UP. Like you said that Mamata Banerjee already said that she is facing an election in next year. So I think it's also very interesting to look at this election as where Mr. Modi was projected before the Lok Sabha election as an outsider to Delhi.
Right.
There was a romantic, about an outsider coming.
Yeah,
I think
gate
today
crasher
he is
is
trying
called.
to reassure the people that he has become very much a Delhiite. But he's facing somebody who is an outsider to politics. That is Kejriwal. He's positioning himself as an outsider to the traditional politics.
Right.
So an outsider to Delhi who was trying to say that I am very much a Delhiite, and another guy who refused to be part of the traditional politics but wanting to be played the same politics in a different script and different plots. So it's becoming very interesting that way.
Absolutely, and Nila Mishra, I'll give you the final word. We just have about a minute. But as far as Delhi, moving on from here, from Delhi, united opposition is something that could perhaps be something that could bother the NDA government or the central government in the future. And given the fact that in Delhi, I mean, it's the Aam Aadmi Party, but there is a lot of support coming in, and the communities that would traditionally vote for other parties now, even what we're being told is even like the minority communities could be voting for the Aam Aadmi Party. So does that change the dynamics for national politics as well?
Well, Aam Aadmi Party doesn't have so much of a presence nationally at the moment, but what it will do, I think, is it will strengthen some other forces in various regions. And already you can see very subtle positioning of parties. Now, for instance, the JDU announced its support for Aam Aadmi Party, and when the last scam, so-called scam, the alleged scam happened, Nitish Kumar went to the extent of saying that it's a desperate BJP which is, hurling all kinds of charges. So you do find a bit of positioning there, and that positioning will, I think, increase. So there might not be a united opposition, but definitely a coordinated move on the part of various opposition forces could emerge from this. Also probably a better flow coordination in the parliament. Besides, another important thing which we must keep in mind is that it would also create rumbles within the BJP itself.
Right.
Now there are different not ideological, but different shades of opinion in the BJP, and different, power bases. So they would also now purport to or try and change or keep in check certain tendencies they don't approve of. So we can hope to see some very interesting things politically in the next few days if the elections in Delhi spring a surprise for the BJP.
Right. Given the fact that how it's going, 10th, we certainly will see some realignment of political fortunes. But thank
there
you.
would be implications directly, Mishra ji, if you agree.
Right.
Vis-a-vis the AAP in the Punjab,
Yes.
and and consequently in Haryana, because this is the belt where the Aam Aadmi Party did leave an imprint in its first foray into elections.
And Punjab immediately so, I would say.
All right, so Punjab, Bihar, a lot of elections coming up, but Delhi is something that everybody is watching out for, and expectedly, of course, a lot could change once the results in Delhi come out. Vinod Sharma, CL Manoj and Nilab Mishra, thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand this difference between caste and class. Have we moved on beyond identity politics in India? A big question perhaps the voters in Delhi will tell us on the 10th. But thank you very much all of you for coming and thank you for watching this. That's the big picture for tonight.